Tennessee This Week from WATE 6 on your side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. Good to be with you. I'm Bo Williams. Don Hudson will be with us in just a moment talking with our panel of political pundits. Tennessee Congressman Chuck Fleischmann was just named the chairman of the House Appropriations Energy and Water Development Subcommittee. That's fitting for the man responsible for representing Oak Ridge, known for its science and energy efforts. Fleischmann, who has served on the subcommittee for a decade now, will be responsible for calling hearings and introducing legislation involving the nation's long-term energy security and national security. He specifically told us he hopes to advance important initiatives like modernizing our nation's nuclear stockpile and advancing groundbreaking nuclear fusion research, initiatives that broadly have support from both sides of the aisle.
Energy and water, we get along famously well. Republicans and Democrats working to fund key initiatives, Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the Y-12 security plant, the uranium processing facility, and perhaps what I'm best known for, the large nuclear cleanup mission in an environmental sense. We're cleaning up legacy waste in Oak Ridge and all over the country. In the southern part of our district, that means funding for the water projects such as the Chickamauga Lock. So it's a coveted slot, it's an important slot, and it's one of the less contentious subcommittees.
Representative Fleischmann also tells us he will work to cut what he calls wasteful government spending and make sure every dollar of tax money is responsibly allocated. Now, we also heard from Congressman Fleischmann about the retirement of ORNL Director Dr. Thomas Zachariah. Dr. Zachariah became director in 2017 and oversaw the lab's $2.5 billion research portfolio and nearly 6,000 employees. When we talked with Congressman Fleischmann, we also asked his thoughts of the work Dr. Zachariah has done at ORNL. Fleischmann says he has worked with 2 lab directors as he served East Tennessee, and he told us he originally worked with Tom Mason, who he says was exemplary in every way. So Dr. Zachariah had some big shoes to fill, and Fleischmann tells us he did just that.
The things that stand out to me, and I fund this, and it's very important to me, and I'm going to continue to fund this. Oak Ridge National Laboratory, of the 17 national laboratories, is the premier national laboratory. What I mean by that specifically, every function, and I believe there's 25, that a national laboratory performs, we attained under Dr. Zachariah's leadership. We were always 1 or 2 short. Now ORNL does everything that a national lab does.
Representative Fleischmann also says supercomputing was a huge accomplishment the lab made under Dr. Zachariah's leadership. Also this week, we learned ORNL operator UT Battelle has hired Russell Reynolds Associates for the task of replacing Dr. Zachariah. The search firm says it is committed to identifying a leader who will continue ORNL's 80-year legacy. Until a permanent director for the national lab is found, Jeff Smith will act as interim director. Congressman Fleischmann also talked to us about opening up a letter he received from a Union County Marine who was freed from a Venezuelan prison after more than 2 years. Fleischmann was one of the people who worked to get Matthew Heath home. Now, we told you when he was released in a prisoner exchange back in October. The congressman tells us he received what he is calling the kindest thank you note after his recent return to Washington. It was from Heath. He says Heath showed his appreciation for Fleischmann's involvement in working to free him from the Maduro regime.
It was really special. This will be a letter that I will frame, I will cherish, I will keep that. And I shared that with my staff because my staff worked with me. This was probably one of the most difficult tasks for me and for my staff since I've been in Congress, and perhaps the most rewarding.
Moving now over to moving over one district to Congressman Tim Burchett, we should note, with Republicans in control of the House, one of his committee assignments could put him at the center of the political action in the session ahead. Burchett last week was appointed to the House Oversight and Accountability Committee, which handles major investigations into federal agencies. Republicans have been eager to use that investigative power by putting the Biden administration under greater scrutiny, and the Oversight Committee would be the panel to do that.
Was really surprised, and I was very pleased that he would entrust me with that. And and the unusual thing is they're going to let me stay on my other 2 committees, which is very unusual that you have 3 committees, especially of that much, I guess, that much importance, because I'm on the Foreign Affairs Committee And I'm also on Transportation Committee, of course, Foreign Affairs, dealing with Ukraine and China and everything going on in the world today. And transportation is invaluable to this area. 40, 75 run through our area, our district. Air traffic, barge traffic, rail traffic, and of course, infrastructure is put in that now. So it's huge for the area. So couldn't be more pleased with this amount of responsibility. It's a lot more work, but it's important for the area. And you go to Washington and play around. Those probably aren't the three committees you want to be on. But if you want to go to work and really do some things for the area, I think those are three very vital committees. The Oversight Committee is really provides oversight for all of government, every entity. The folks at TVA, they need to be ready. I think the post office needs to be ready. Some of our the Justice Department, when they choose to prosecute conservative folks and go in and use almost militaristic ways of apprehending people, when they could have been, they could have just easily called their attorney and asked them to turn themselves in. Those are kind of things that I think we need to look at and just find out how rotten this apple is in Washington. I got a feeling it's going to go to the core.
On the Oversight Committee, Congressman Burchett says he expects to get into a number of different topics, including President Biden's recently discovered classified documents and the origin of COVID-19. Back here at home, Knoxville Police Chief Paul Noel has now been on the job for 7 months. That was one of the big topics in our conversation with Mayor India Kincannon last week. Well, during Noel's tenure so far, we've seen a range of changes. KPD became the first law enforcement agency in Tennessee to join active bystandership for law enforcement. Also, the police department underwent one of the biggest reorganizations in its history, increasing the number of police districts from 2 to 3. And now Chief Noel is looking ahead to what he wants to see happen this year. 6 on Your Side reporter Dominic Webster spoke with the chief Thursday about what's to come.
Chief Paul Noel has only been on the job for 7 months, and the Knoxville Police Department has already had a complete reorganization to how they will handle crimes, and that reorganization has paid off.
Certainly moving in the right direction. If you looked at last week, we released our high priority crime statistics for 2022. Significantly in there, we had the reduction of murders by 15%, car burglaries down by 5%, motor vehicle theft down by 21%. These are things that the men and women of the Knoxville Police Department have worked on, and we really are proud of the results that we have achieved.
Chief Noel says KPD has accomplished quite a lot in that short 7 months, something he says he didn't think would happen.
I feel really good with the pace we're going, right? I mean, when we were looking back and putting this together, I'll be honest with you, I was kind of surprised we accomplished so much in such a short period of time.
Part of getting so much accomplished, changing the culture within the department so that everyone strives for the same goals and understands the consequences when rules are broken.
Change does not happen overnight. Change takes a while. Some of the changes that we're implementing are going to take years to implement, but I am absolutely, I feel really good about the path that we're going and that the progress that we're making.
The department is taking no time to implement one of those changes by introducing a new job. If approved, they will look to have the Deputy Chief of Professional Standards position filled by April or May of this year. And that person will be doing a very unique job.
And the vision for that position is to be someone, it's their job every day to be looking at policies, practices, procedures, and training, and how they intersect throughout the police department, and to make sure that we're holding one another accountable.
We also had the chance, by the way, to speak with Knoxville's Police Advisory Review Committee about the proposed Deputy Chief of Professional Standards.
My immediate response was, oh, this is great. Department, so that piece is already there. The thing that I'm really looking forward to is the preventative measures, and I do think that this position will fill that void more so likely than probably what's in place currently.
Something else to mention from the Chief's news conference, Chief Noel ended by saying, despite all the good things happening, the department still has a long way to go. Still to come, Don Hudson talks with our panel of pundits. We've got that for you. You're watching Tennessee This Week on WAT 6 on your side.
Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. We are now joined by our panel of pundits. We have Courtney Piper, our political contributor, Michael Covington, a guest analyst, and healthcare analyst Craig Griffith. Thank you all for being with us. Let's talk about a couple of our representatives here. A congressman getting appointed to some pretty big deals. Representative Fleischmann appointed the chairmanship of the House Appropriations Subcommittee for Water and Energy, which of course will have a lot of ties to East Tennessee, a lot of ties to money, a lot of ties to ORNL and those type of things. Let's start with your reaction to him being on that committee and the power he now wields. And Courtney, you want to get us started?
This is a really big deal for East Tennessee. Congressman Fleischmann might not represent all of our viewership, especially the folks in Knoxville and Knox County, but his power and authority that he has on this House Appropriations Subcommittee brings in federal funding for TVA and the Department of Energy missions, specifically in Oak Ridge. And those Department of Energy missions are responsible for supporting 43,000 jobs. That's a lot, and it has an economic impact of over $7 billion. So the power and authority that Congressman Fleischmann has to support those federal missions and support TVA has real economic impacts for the Tennessee Valley, for the Knoxville area. So the fact that East Tennesseans have Representative Fleischmann on the House Appropriation, chairing the House Appropriations Energy and Water Committee is a really, really, really big deal for us.
Craig?
Well, yes, it's important to have high-ranking officials on these committees because what we're seeing in Washington is an urge to cut spending. It seems that the Speaker has cut a deal with some conservative members of Congress to cut spending in significant ways. And that always is great in talking, but then you have 435 representatives saying, yeah, I'm all for cutting spending, but don't touch anything in my district. So I think it's important that Fleischmann has this high-ranking position so that he can indeed keep important funding for science and energy going in the East Tennessee and in the entire state of Tennessee and the whole country as well. So it's an important thing to have people in these high-ranking positions.
And as you mentioned, Courtney, the $7.4 billion and 43,000 jobs. I mean, some people just don't have any idea how much that would impact if some of that or much of it or half of it went away. So, Michael, your thoughts?
Well, I interviewed Congressman Fleischmann last year, and the subject matter was the high fuel costs. He a super nice gentleman. In listening to the presentation that we saw earlier today, he is far and away now more focused on doing things nationally. He's focused on the role that he has and the power that he has, and obviously that power will benefit Tennessee across the state. So I'm looking forward to seeing the kinds of things that he does with this control and with this power that he has to regulate power and water.
Let's talk now about Congressman Burchett. He gets a seat on the House Oversight and Accountability Committee. And if people don't know, that has kind of the primary investigative committee, oversees government operations and Politico. I read an article in Politico where it says this is a real hot spot for Republicans. And it's just, I don't know, I don't want to say the Wild West, but whatever it turns into, it could be interesting, especially with someone like our congressman as part of that. Let's go back here and talk about that and your reaction to him being there and what he can and can't do, what he should and shouldn't do. And I'll go back and start with you, Courtney.
The Congressman Burchett's appointment on this committee, it really tracks with his entire political career. When he was the mayor of Knox County, he appointed me to the board of Visit Knoxville at a time when Visit Knoxville did not have very much public trust. And when he approached me about it, he said, you know, look, I want people on here that can start rebuilding public trust with Visit Knoxville. And I said, me? Why me? And he said, well, you know, I trust you to do this, and this is a really big priority for me. So I've known Congressman Burchett for transparency and accountability to be a really big theme of his political career. So this tracks now, but there is the larger issue of the committee and other Republicans on this committee who don't seem to be tracking a whole lot with that mindset. There are a lot of Republicans on this committee that have supported President Trump's efforts to overturn the election. They have defended the people that launched a deadly attack on our Capitol on January 6th, and they're friends with white supremacists. So there's cause for concern for some of these larger these committee assignments in general.
We'll keep the order going. We'll go over to Craig and let him respond.
Well, I think you have to look at where the Republicans are in the House. They're in the majority in the House, but the minority in the Senate, and they don't have the White House. So it seems to me that there's a definite realization on their part that they cannot pass any significant legislation that they're interested in passing. But what they can do is investigate. So I think you're going to have 2 years of investigations and not legislations coming out of the House. And it'll be interesting to see the role that our congressman plays in this. Will he be a voice of moderation? Will he ask for facts and not hyperbole? Will he decide to go with the extremist parts of his party and in terms of these investigations? So it's a very critical time, I think, in Congressman Burchett's career as to which direction he goes in terms of these investigations that are sure to come in the next 2 years.
Michael, what would you like to see happen, and also what do you think will happen?
As it relates to Congressman Burchett?
Yes.
Well, my feeling is that political capital and the use of political capital is an art form. And I'd like to say that Tim Burchett is a pretty good user of political capital. Many of our viewers will remember seeing the image of, excuse me, Tim Burchett and Congressman Boebert, maybe, and Getz during the Kevin McCarthy speaker votes. And a lot of folks were wondering, well, why is Tim Burchett sitting with those two congressmen who are against Kevin McCarthy? That question still has not been answered. But what you do realize is that Tim Burchett is starting to make some waves on Capitol Hill. People are starting to recognize that Tim is a quiet leader that speaks his mind, that speaks his conscience, and that is a deep thinker as it relates to that will actually benefit his district and will benefit the nation. So I'm looking forward to seeing Tim sitting in some of those hearings. I'm sure there are going to be some hearings. I don't think there are going to be as many hearings as people think, but I would like to believe that the hearings that we will see and that Tim Burchett will be a part of, that they will be substantive and that they will yield a reasonable result.
I think we can all agree he gives great sound bites, if nothing else.
He does.
He was in that setting because he was a staunch supporter of McCarthy.
Yeah, he was right.
He was there trying to negotiate with those the three main holdouts.
Right.
And refereed some fights.
And refereed some fights. So it was clear he was there trying to encourage them, trying to see what they needed to come around to McCarthy's side. And eventually McCarthy gave him, as in the words of Congressman Gatz, he gave me everything I wanted.
Yeah,
so,
I had a chance to talk to him right after that all happened, and he was trying to get adjourned because he thought it was getting too heated. If that says anything about his...
Oh, yeah. When he was going like this, he was a dead giveaway.
They didn't get that passed, and they went on anyway. Hey, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with much more on Tennessee This Week. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. Once again, joined by our panel of pundits, and we're going to go a little more local here into Knox County and that area. The county commissioner, Daisha Lundy, walked out of a meeting here recently, a heated debate over, and if I can summarize for everyone, the McAllister's cashier who was fired after a social media post that talked about deputies not being served, and then post was taken down, and then in county meetings this has been playing out. And I know this much, just to set the tone, that the sheriff and deputies were invited to come to a council meeting and tell their side of the story because the young girl involved, she already told her side. This is playing out in public, and it doesn't seem to be going away. I mean, it seems to be getting more and more heat instead of dissipating. I'm curious, Courtney, since, you've been going first anyway, what do you think? Should they pull back, have some private meetings, get this taken care of, or is it just going to just keep festering?
This became a thing because it was put in the public sphere. The sheriff's deputies that were there, somebody posted it on the sheriff's social media accounts. So it needs to be completely and totally addressed in public. The sheriff's office needs to go to a county commission meeting and talk about what happened and why publicly, and that will hopefully put this entire thing to rest. The fact that they are resisting it, that they first instigated this by putting it out in the public sphere and they're not willing to end it, is making matters worse. And quite frankly, it's not a good look for the sheriff's office either.
We'll change the order up a little bit here. Michael.
Well, we do not have enough time to fully vet this.
Right.
But what I will say right out of the gate, the sheriff's deputies made much ado about nothing. We're talking about a sandwich. We're talking about a $5 meal at a deli. To even waste the time to log onto a computer to post that on social media was juvenile. It was nonsensical. They never should have done it. And one of the reasons why they probably aren't going to step forward is because they look so incredibly juvenile for having reacted the way they did. It's just over the top. The PIO officer for the sheriff never should have been, there never should have been a discussion about this. Never. This is a nothing burger. And the county commissioner, Daisha Lundy, she's making way too much out of it. It's just nothing. It's a sandwich, for God's sake.
Craig.
Well, I think this is an example of what happens when you jump to conclusions, when you don't figure out, what's going on. These sheriff deputies obviously thought they were being discriminated against by an African-American teenager. And from what I hear, she was just doing her job. And all of a sudden they jump to the conclusion that it's discrimination and run to their superiors and say, this is what happened to me. And they post it. And that's where we are now. I mean, it behooves. You would think that people in law enforcement, the first thing they would do would be, let's get all the facts here.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on here? What was this discrimination, or was this young girl going off shift, and the next person in line was taking the deputy's orders? I don't think that this is bringing these issues up for discussion is an example of going against the police department. I think that this is simply a question of people jumping to a conclusion for something that wasn't there. And so it's going to be a difficult and painful procedure for the sheriff's department. And I doubt that we'll ever hear anything from them on it, because as we all know, the sheriff is an independently elected body in our county government, and no one can force him to do anything he doesn't want to do. So I think that they'll just hunker down and wait till this too passes. And I don't know if there's enough support on county commission for the commissioner to continue to probe this in any meaningful way.
It's a sandwich. It's a sandwich.
And Michael's correct. It's a sandwich, but when it became not a sandwich is when that public information officer with the Knox County Sheriff's Office decided to post about it on social media and take it into this public sphere. Then that became very, very poor professional judgment. And I'm being kind there. So the fact that the sheriff's office cannot publicly come to a commission meeting and talk about what happened and why, and say, you know what, we made a mistake and we're sorry. It's not a good look for the sheriff's office that they cannot and will not and are resisting doing that. It's not good.
Yeah, the only thing they have said, I understand, is the county commission is saying, come here, and the sheriff is saying, no, come on over here and meet with us and let's talk about this. But you're right, Michael. It's a sandwich. But then once it became an accusation, how some people respond to accusations, like either they just go, okay, whatever, or we see what we're seeing now. This
right.
Back and forth, a lot of emotion going on there as well. Does this get resolved in any way soon? I mean, if the sheriff just ignores it or deals with it, does it get resolved?
What is resolution? But I mean, I'm not really sure how you can resolve it. Each side can tell their viewpoint of what happened and have that public, but I don't know if that would be considered resolution.
The commissioner wants an apology that's not forthcoming. The county commission is not going to vote to issue subpoenas for the sheriff's office.
Right.
This is about to die.
Okay. Courtney, if you want to, final word, but if not, we'll wrap it up.
I'd like to see the sheriff's office speak publicly about this at County Commission.
Okay, and with that, we will wrap it up. We want to thank our panel for being with us and for sharing their opinions and their thoughts. We want to thank you for watching. Once again, Tennessee This Week, and we'll see you next week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Nexstar Broadcasting.